Welcome to Quantum Sparks. Today we're going to talk about the psychological quicksand of approval. Today's class in many ways is really about business planning because the most effective business plan, the most profitable strategy, the most aligned path in life and work is actually very simple. Become who you are. Your greatest competitive advantage isn't a tactic, it isn't a script, it's not a marketing plan, and it's not a lead source. It's the version of you that isn't diluted, edited, or shaped by the need to be approved by others. Because here's the truth that most people overlook. If approval dictates your direction, your future belongs to everyone but you. Now, approval in itself isn't the villain. As we explore today, approval is helpful, it's dependence that is hazardous, and awareness is freedom. The danger lies not in liking approval, but in needing it, needing to be seen, validated, applauded, or chosen. Because the more you need to be seen, the further you drift from the part of you that matters. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into the psychology and science behind this, and we're going to explore a couple different concepts. First, the Jungian concept of individuation, how becoming whole and authentic breaks the cycle of performance. We're going to study social identity theory, how groups, roles, and expectations shape the masks that we wear, and self-determination theory, why autonomy, not approval, is the birthplace of motivation, power, and success. Today's class is not about becoming somebody who you aren't by following the crowds. It's about reclaiming the steering wheel of your life and your business. Not from fear, not from comparison, not from expectations of clients or from colleagues or family or even from society, but from the only place that strategy should ever come from, your sovereign, unedited self. Let's begin today's Quantum Sparks, the psychological quicksand of approval, identity, freedom, and the math of your choices. As always, knowledge is not power, knowledge is potential. So take out a pen and paper, take some notes so that you can further explore these concepts after today's program. We start each Quantum Sparks with the class with the quote. Today's quote is, "You are unique, and if that is not fulfilled, then something wonderful has been lost." Today's Quantum Sparks is about becoming you. So let's talk about approval seeking. Because life doesn't change when you get answers. Life changes when you understand why you are seeking approval at times before acting. Now, like I said, approval alone is not the problem. Approval can be supportive or affirming. It can connect us as humans. It's healthy in some ways. It is the need for approval that can be the cage. If your life depends upon validation or approval from anyone, then your destiny is no longer in your own hands. You grant control of your life to others. Now, this comes off of last week's Quantum Sparks, where we talked about fear. Because as we move into 2026, it's important to think about what is going to be your unique identifier. What is going to make you have the best year of your life, your best business, your best life. And in truth, to get there, it's all about becoming you. Nobody else can be you. And that's why fear, the need for approval, all of these are quicksand, especially approval. It's psychological quicksand because you're reaching for something that doesn't even exist. It's an illusion. Approval dependence ends up replacing the best parts of you. So your autonomy becomes conformity. Your intuition ends up becoming consensus. Your authenticity just becomes performance. And then your desires become permission. Approval in and of itself is just information. It's gathering information from outside of you. But approval dependence, that becomes an identity. So here's some signs that you might be seeking approval, because today's class is truly about awareness. That's where freedom comes in all of these Quantum Sparks programs. Quantum Sparks is not about giving you the answers. It's about giving you something better, awareness. So some of the signs that you're maybe seeking approval is when you say yes when you really want to say no, or you adjust your beliefs to match the audience, or avoiding conflict at all cost. Over-explaining. If you're over-explaining, you're probably preempting disapproval. If you're over-apologizing, again, you're preempting disapproval. Or constantly asking for reassurance. Emotional signs of approval seeking. You have anxiety when you disappoint someone. We can't control other people. Feeling rejected or empty without compliments, or feeling responsible for how others feel. Again, we can't control what's happening with other people. Social relational signs of approval seeking. Overgiving. Oftentimes, overgiving is a sign of trying to earn acceptance from somebody. Or no boundaries. No boundaries, again, is a fear of losing acceptance. Or another sign of social relational approval seeking is minimizing your achievements so that you fit in. You dummy down yourself so that you fit in with the crowd. Digital signs of approval seeking. Checking likes or comments compulsively on social media for that dopamine rush, or deleting posts that don't perform well, because to you, that's a rejection. People aren't liking it enough. Curating your persona instead of just expressing who you are, and comparing yourself to other people's highlight reels. All of these are signs of approval seeking. Humans seek approval through behavior, speech, silence, performance, compliance, overgiving, digital self-curation, emotional monitoring, and identity shifting. Humans can be very chameleon-like to get that approval. And again, I'll say this again and again, the danger is not just approval. Approval is not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. But when you build your entire being around the need for approval, that's where it gets very dangerous, because it's no longer your identity, it's the identity of the people you are seeking approval from. So we're going to cover 3 different theories so that when you leave today's Quantum Sparks, these are some ideas that'll set you on a path towards awareness. And there's many other psychological theories and studies on the study of needing approval. We're going to first look at the Jungian theory of individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming integrated, whole, and autonomous within yourself. In other words, everything you need is within you. By the way, that is the truth. Everything you need already exists within you. But how do we get to that point? Rather than a version of ourselves that is shaped by outside approval or expectations of other people, or the identity that is created because of the collective. According to Jung, the human psyche is fragmented. There is the persona, which is the mask that is shown to the world. There is the shadow, the parts of us that we hide, the ego, which is our conscious identity, and then the self, which is our deepest, most authentic core. And as Jung says, individuation is the process of integrating these parts into something whole and sovereign, so that the outside world, the projection we make to the outside world, is truly who we are. We don't live for somebody else approving us. Recognizing the mask you wear to gain approval is an important part of the integration process. So this begins by just looking, seeking, when is it that you're putting on the mask for other people? And having that awareness in and of itself is part of the integration process. Understanding where you're performing instead of just expressing who you are. In order to do this, it requires you to face the shadow, the part of you that you hide from the world, and asking, why do you hide that from the world? You have to meet that part of you that you suppress, because that's the part that you believe won't win approval. And that is the piece of you. It is the desires, your fears, your instincts, and your truths that you believe would not be accepted by the outside world. By beginning this process of individuation, you begin to differentiate yourself from the collective. You start becoming less governed by family expectations, social norms, the group identity, cultural beliefs, and roles that you were assigned rather than chosen. You end up breaking from conformity. By doing so, you replace external approval with an internal authority. Your own inner voice becomes strengthened. Jung believed that individuation requires listening to yourself over the crowd. Jung says this is the process of becoming psychologically whole. It's not about self-improvement because you're perfect as you are. It's about self-reclamation. The goal is a unified inner life where you act from who you are, your inside inherent truth, rather than acting from a need to belong. Individuation is the antidote to approval dependence. Becoming more of who you are is the antidote to needing approval for everything. So that's one theory, the individuation process that Jung introduced. The second that we'll study is social identity theory. Social identity theory states that a large part of our identity comes from the social groups that we belong to. And that over time we become different versions of ourselves because the social groups that we are part of change over time. But the idea is that people change behavior, beliefs, and their own self-perception in order to maintain acceptance within the groups that we identify with. So why does it matter? Because if who you are is a byproduct just only of the group that you are part of, well, number one, approval becomes a currency. That means that you can be bought and sold through acceptance and approval. Also, belonging ends up feeling like survival because disapproval feels like exile. In other words, if I do this, I'm going to be exiled from my family, from my friend group, from my political group. So conformity ends up feeling like safety, and becoming authentic you feels dangerous. The problem with this is that people end up staying small just so that they can be part of the group. They just want to be included. And many will betray themselves before risk losing the group. This is what we mean by that psychological quicksand. They're identifying everything in life through the lens of the group and instead of through their own personal lens. So people place themselves and others. We all do this inherently. We all group ourselves into these different roles. So we are the role of a mother, a real estate agent. We group ourselves by our affiliations. I'm a Democrat or a Republican or a veteran or an athlete. We group ourselves by the communities that we're in, such as our industry groups, our spiritual groups, and we also group ourselves by our demographics, our gender, our ethnicity, and our class. The problem comes when these become the lens from which we see everything. So part of your self-worth and self-concept is going to be tied to your group, your role, your people, and the tribe that you belong to. But the problem begins when these become a psychological currency. These are that your identity becomes so tied to the group or the role that you play that your decisions are made based on your role or the group you're in to the point that it's no longer your identity. You end up conforming in order just to belong. You adjust your behavior, even against your own values, so that you maintain approval, you avoid a social threat that you're not going to belong, to stay in good standing, avoiding exclusion, strengthen group identity, and reducing your cognitive dissonance. In other words, you don't feel good when the group is not, when you're not aligned with the group. And disapproval from any of these groups feels like exile. So you end up seeking approval from the collective identity that you believe you belong to. And that approval becomes more important than your inner truth, your internal alignment, your personal instincts, your authenticity, sovereignty, and your destiny. Approval dependence is when people seek validation from the group, and it changes the probability architecture of your life. Because the choices you make are no longer your personal identity, your personal belief system. Your choices are made to avoid social consequences. So you change all the probability trajectory of your future. Social identity theory explains why people fear losing belonging more than losing themselves. The last one we're going to look at is self-determination theory. Self-determination theory explains what truly motivates human beings and what causes them to thrive or collapse psychologically. So, this theory states that there are 3 psychological needs that humans have. 1, autonomy. That means we want to be able to choose our own actions. So we want freedom, we want self-direction, we want inner authority. 2, competence. That means I can do this. We have a psychological need to feel capable, effective, and empowered. And 3, relatedness. I matter and I connect meaningfully with others. We have a need for genuine connection, not performance-based belonging. So approval seeking destroys these. It destroys autonomy because now you're relying on external permissions to act. It undermines competence because you doubt yourself unless other people are affirming your choices. And it distorts relations because you end up confusing performance with connection and validation with love. In other words, you feel that if you fit in, that's love. Self-determination theory helps explain Humans thrive when they have autonomy, competence, and genuine connection. But approval dependence ends up undermining all three. So it explains why you might feel unhappy. You might seem to have everything you wish for in your life, but you're still unhappy. It could be because your autonomy or your competence or your connection to others has been undermined by the need for approval. So every choice you make changes the probabilities of your life. Approval dependence pulls decisions towards safety, conformity, performance, low risk, delay. This is why I tied today's class to the idea of business planning, because it's hard to plan for a business if you are seeking approval, because your business is going to be a byproduct of what others allow for you. True business planning is about having sovereign choices. Sovereign choices trend towards alignment with who you are as a human, your originality, your boldness, truth. All of these create destiny level outcomes. In other words, you can be and do and have anything you want for your business and your life. Everything is within reach. Anything is within reach. When you are truly acting as yourself. A destiny level outcome is only possible when you are truly being who you are and not seeking approval from outsiders to tell you who you are. Approval dependence shrinks your future to what other people are comfortable with. Approval independence expands your future to what you are capable of. So the best business plan is to focus as you move into the new year on approval independence, to expansion, to the destiny level outcomes of your possibilities, because you're becoming who you are. Needing approval changes your destiny. Valuing approval just adds connection. So this isn't about saying, I'm not listening to anybody. It's just not letting approval get in the way of who you really are. So here's some questions for self-inquiry as you think about these concepts moving forward. Ask yourself, when making choices or making business decisions or life decisions, am I doing this for approval, or is it because it's what I truly want? Next, ask, if no one knew that you were doing this, would you still do it? Ask yourself, whose permission are you waiting for? And ask yourself, would I choose differently if validation for this did not exist? Remember this, that the choices you make in life create karmic ripples. So as you think about the choices you make and why you're doing them, think about the karma that you're creating. The intention behind your actions becomes its vibration. So this is why people live small lives when every human has the ability to accomplish anything, to have whatever they want, to accomplish anything they want. Oftentimes you see real estate agents who seem to be doing all the right things in their business, but they don't have the results. I would suggest that maybe they're not having the results because of some of these ideas around not becoming who they are truly meant to be. And instead, their intention behind their actions is approval. Because when the intention behind your action is just approval, then you are putting that vibration out to the universe, the energy of approval. That means approval driven actions are going to carry approval driven energy. This is not destiny level outcomes. You're not creating the outcomes to create the destiny you're capable of. The energy you're putting out is approval driven. That what you're seeking back is more approval. And by the way, the energy it creates is the need for more approval. Also, we see a lot of these concepts come up in social media. That means that posts that are rooted in insecurity end up spreading more insecurity. When you make posts that are rooted in a hunger for more, then you are spreading more of that hunger for more. The karmic cost of approval dependence is that you unconsciously teach others to feel inadequate. That is not good karma. Approval dependence doesn't just distort your life, it distorts the lives of those who are comparing themselves to you. This is how approval dependence becomes unconscious harm. So when you are building your life for the purpose of seeking approval, the illusion of approval, we should say, you unconsciously create harm from doing that, not only for your own life, but for the people who are watching you and the people who depend on you. Conscious independence is not about rejecting approval, it's just rejecting dependence on approval. When identity is internally sourced, the opinions of others have some influence, but they're not the authority. You are the authority. When approval is optional, but not required, authenticity becomes effortless. In other words, you become more of who you truly are when you're not depending on the approval of other people. So oftentimes people who reflect on these ideas and who are not dependent on approval, they feel alone. But solitude becomes your sanctuary when you are who you are meant to be, because the place that you remember who you are without performance, that self, is you. It's solitude. That is your home. You don't need the approval of outside people or the acceptance or the belonging, because everything you need to build the life you wish for already exists within you. Individuation is all about becoming your own psychological home, that you don't seek it from the outside. A sovereign identity cannot be taken away by someone else's mood, by someone else's opinion, or by someone else's absence. So today is about awareness, losing the illusion, because you don't lose yourself when you lose approval, you lose the illusion. You create new probabilities. So when approval is removed from the equation and belonging is removed from the equation, your true potential becomes inevitable. Your decisions change, your relationships change, your confidence changes, your success trajectory changes. What better business plan can there be than that? By the way, this isn't about positive thinking. This is about mathematical compounding. A new identity changes the entire probability field of your life. The true you, that's what today is all about. The business plan of creating the true you. Because every act of authenticity expands your future. Every act of sovereignty sharpens your path. And every act of alignment rewires your destiny. Approval is not the enemy, but dependence is. The only life worth living is the one that does not require applause from other people to exist. So choose sovereignty, shift the probabilities, and come home to yourself. Our closing quote today is from Maya Angelou. And she says, I belong everywhere I go, no matter who is not there with me. Maya Angelou. As always, you can watch all of our past Quantum Sparks, or now you can listen to our Quantum Sparks series on Spotify. As well, you can go to laerrealty.com/quantum sparks and enjoy previous episodes. And if there's ever anything you want us to cover in a future class, go to laerrealty.com/ask anything. Thanks, everyone.